The Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, is getting underway later this week in Florida. The speakers will include Republicans Donald Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Lauren Boebert, and others. There's also a Democrat now on the speaking list. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp just tweeted this, confirmed. Tulsi Gabbard. Schlapp's announcement describes her as a 2020 presidential candidate and former congresswoman. At least back then, she was a Democrat, as Mediaite put it. Gabbard's record of Congress included voting with former President Donald Trump 20.1% of the time, according to FiveThirtyEight. However, she has been critical of the Democratic Party, has made numerous appearances on Tucker Carlson Tonight and other Fox News programs. Like Trump, Gabbard is dovish on military intervention. Gabbard hasn't exactly been a favorite of the American Conservative Union, as Noah Rothman wrote on Twitter, quote, sure, she's weak on taxes, the budget, spending, energy, the environment, labor issues, government integrity, transparency, and human dignity, part of the ACU, but she slags on Biden on TV, and that's what's really important. Through the years, there have been a handful of Democrats who have appeared at CPAC. This has included former Bill Clinton advisor Paul Begala at the event in 2013. Former Representative Dennis Kucinich appeared in 2015. Former Obama advisor and current CNN commentator Van Jones was there in 2019. Still, the Gabbard appearance seems a bit different, particularly when it comes to the neocons and their position in Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard wrote on Twitter, what are we trying to achieve in Ukraine? How will it benefit the American people and at what cost? The Biden administration has never answered these questions. Inflation and cost of living will drastically increase. Russia will retaliate, and no one knows where it will all end. Jack, has it ended for Tulsi Gabbard as far as the Democratic Party is concerned?
Oh yeah, of course. So, but honestly, it had ended for her back when she was pretending to be a progressive. They already hated her for being a progressive. So that ship had sailed a long time ago. The question is, can people stop calling her a progressive? And the answer now is obvious. Of course, she's no longer anywhere near progressive. Apparently she was pretending the whole time. That voting record is greatly misleading because that was while she was pretending to be a progressive and doing that particular racket, as it turns out in her case. Now, we had caught on to this early on, David, that her positions were actually far more conservative than people realized. And Anna was leading the charge in pointing this out. And we looked back at the tape. I thought it was 2 years ago. It turns out it was nearly 3 years ago that Anna started pointing this out. And I want to show you this clip so you can see who's right, who's wrong. What, back then when Anna said this, she took a ton of critique. How dare you? Tulsi is a progressive and is a better progressive than Bernie Sanders. All these hilarious things as now you see Tulsi Gabbard running fully into the arms of Tucker Carlson, CPAC, and every loathsome right-wing group. Remember these words from Anna back then.
But it would be misleading and unfair to my audience if I pretended there weren't some concerns for progressives. Most of the worries I personally have center on Tulsi's foreign policy views. While she's clear in her disdain for military intervention in the name of regime change, she is supportive of the war against terror. Think about how many interventions the US has found itself in since the Bush administration, all in the name of fighting terrorism, right? So I'm not just talking about Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm talking about major military operations in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen, right? These were all done in the name of fighting terror. There have also been US-led coalition airstrikes in Mali, Syria, Libya, and West African airstrikes in Nigeria. Have those military actions ended global terrorism? Of course not. Tulsi's hawkishness toward terror has led her to support military actions I, along with many other progressives, disagree with. Torture tactics like waterboarding, which were given the euphemism of enhanced interrogations, was something that Tulsi was supportive of.
So Anna did an 18-minute segment there filled with receipts of Tulsi's actual quotes, etc. So David, in a sense, her right-wing inclinations had been hiding underneath her progressive marketing efforts all throughout. And there was a unifying theme to it. When it comes to Russia, she says we should not intervene. Now, when it comes to Russia intervening in Ukraine, she seems to mind that less. But whenever she talks about how we should bomb countries, almost every time they're Muslim countries. When she talks about how we should torture detainees and call it enhanced interrogation, it's almost always Muslim detainees. And so now she's gone further right wing against more immigration, against more of the progressive priorities. And I have not seen her push any progressive ideas in basically over a year. She, by the way, one of her turns towards conservatism was when she endorsed Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders after she left the Democratic primaries in 2020. Well, Joe Biden is far more conservative than Bernie Sanders. That doesn't make any sense if you're pretending to be a progressive. And so we just now have the culmination of this trek that we told you about 3 years ago. And we were right because we weren't speculating. We had already seen the facts that others couldn't quite discern. They were there in hiding in plain sight the whole time. And she got more and more conservative because she was looking for a new racket.
Also seems like she got more and more intoxicated with the attention that she was getting by being on Tucker Carlson's show and the rest. I mean, she's not exactly known as an intellectual influencer. She was never that way necessarily in the Democratic Party, but here she is suddenly, Republicans get to hold her up, conservatives hold her up as, oh, somebody has come back to the conservative way of thinking. And even if she really has in some issues, I wonder if it also goes to show just how shallow things have become in the conservative movement, that just because somebody is famous for being on Tucker Carlson's show, now they get a speaking slot at CPAC.
Yeah, but look, remember, there's a litmus test to going on Tucker Carlson's show. You have to agree with them on everything. I know because they tried to get me on the show several times, and I told them that I would not agree to things I don't agree to. A very, very simple test, right? And so they said, no, that's it, we don't want you on. So the Jimmy Dores, the Glenn Greenwalds, and the Tulsi Gabbards that go on Tucker Carlson's show repeatedly, you will notice that they never disagree with him. They're not allowed to disagree with him. They basically sold their soul and are saying, yes, if I go on here, I know I'll get more followers, more paid subscribers. They'll almost all be right wing. And that's the deal that they've made. And in return, what Tulsi and the others offer is, oh my God, Tucker and Donald Trump and CPAC and all of you loathsome conservatives, you are right about everything. I am from the left. And I will tell you that from the left, the right is right about everything. So that's the scam. It's an obvious scam. And by the way, they use up these people until it's obvious that it's a scam and then they throw them away. Look at Dave Rubin. He was the first to do that scam. I am a classical liberal, and I will tell you as a classical liberal that the right wing is right about everything, right? And you know, the idiots like Bill Maher and the others were like, oh, well, this is a real sign. This is a real sign that the left is going towards the right, that the right was right all along. And so they get catfished like that. Some of them wittingly, some of them unwittingly. But Rubin's now used up. So then they did the liberal thing with him. Then they had him betray every identity he had. Then they had him attack gay Americans, saying that they're starting fires. What, it's insanity. Now he's making references to his Jewish culture. It's disgusting. So same thing for Glenn Greenwald, who's a former shell of his former self. This is one of the saddest things I've ever seen, because in that group, he's the only one that had a real career, right? And so now they'll use Tulsi for as long as it makes sense, and they'll give her some crumbs off their table, and she'll eat those up, and I guess she'll be satisfied with the fame and the money that she's gotten. But understand, even back when she was pretending to be a progressive, she was just trying to find an angle, okay? She never meant any of that, and she doesn't mean what she's saying now. She doesn't care. The only thing I've ever seen her mean is how much she hates Muslims.
Yeah, how much she hates Muslims and how much she likes herself. I mean, we should all marry somebody who loves himself as much as Tulsi Gabbard loves herself. I mean, it just feels like Tulsi's always been about Tulsi. When it was cool to be a progressive, there she was. Then when it was time to look for a job in the Biden administration, there she was supporting Joe Biden. Now, in order to keep her flame going, it's, well, okay, sure, I'll go to CPAC. It's sad.
Yeah, and in case you're wondering why the random hatred of Muslims from someone who was pretending to be on the left, and she couldn't even contain herself. Even when she was pretending to be on the left, she's like, but we really should torture the Muslims. Okay, let's just be clear. And we should drone strike the hell out of them because I'm against war. It's because she's in a fundamentalist Hindu cult. It does not speak for all Hindus, not by a long shot, literally not by stretch of billions of people, okay? But she's in a particular fundamentalist cult, and it appears that's where it's coming from, but I don't really care. I don't know if it's because of that or she, just whatever her personal proclivities are. The thing that matters is what she actually advocates for, and what she has advocated for consistently is anti-Muslim hatred, and now she's gone full right wing and will be celebrated at CPAC. I'll tell you ahead of time what she's going to say. The left wing, I am in the left wing, and I can guarantee you they're wrong about everything, and the right wing is right about everything. And she'll get a standing ovation from a bunch of schmucks who believe that stuff for a couple of years until they throw her in the garbage can. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.